Okay. Yep, there it is. It's going. Where'd my camera go? Oh, there. Okay, so welcome everybody. Welcome to whatever the hell it is that I'm doing here. And I'm here again to introduce you to someone much more interesting than me and probably more talented and capable. So this is Schizoid Vision. I always have to start with something self-deprecation. I apologize. It makes me comfortable. And they have a variety of things to discuss with me today. And one of those things is the fact that they run a YouTube channel. They are interested in topics ranging from psychology to philosophy to overall human personality and things of that nature. And I think they would probably do a better job of maybe mentioning who they are and what they're about, because, you know, who better?
Okay, so I'm Penzi. I have the channel Schizoid Vision.
Oh, so sorry, that's not like me. So you're not sorry. Okay. Well, what is the name you said?
Penzi.
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 Thank you. I don't know if you've mentioned it that often in your
No,
actual
I don't.
channel.
I sometimes I forget I have a name. So it's like
Based.
yeah, yeah. Um, yeah. So my channel is Schizoid Vision, and basically I'm just covering sort of all schizoid phenomenology, like to do with development of the disorder, experience of the disorder, different people's perspectives on the disorder, and also most importantly adaptations, because we mustn't forget schizoid adaptations is important to recognize as well. Also I cover personality types, originating from the Myers-Briggs system. Um, and I look at different types of personalities and yeah, I don't know what to say.
All right, good. So let me start by asking something that I think can get the ball rolling here fairly easily. Since you're a content creator, the first thing I want to ask, it's almost, I hate the term icebreaker because it sounds horrible, and I hate when people use it, especially in corpo settings. But I want to ask, what sort of YouTube content and things like that did you essentially grow up watching, or online content like podcasts, streams, like, because usually a lot of the people that eventually decide, oh, I'm going to start making some content, especially like conversational stuff or stream stuff, it's probably because they watched a lot of things or had a lot of interests in that sort of stuff in general. So I'm just curious where your inspirations, if any, come from.
I've never really been a big sort of TV watcher or
Same.
video watcher, really. I'm more sort of into like writing, reading
Okay.
and writing than watching. But I do watch some things there. I saw your channel, yeah, and
I'm surprised anyone
I
finds it,
think
but
you done a really good job of putting schizoid on the map, because it is so like under publicized, really, you know. What else did I do? I watch a lot of MBTI content, typology. I sometimes watch some content on philosophical topics.
so no specific channels, no specific things like that you can think of off the
Not
top of your head.
not really. I'm not really sort of an avid watcher, as I said, really. Like,
Okay.
because my attention span sort of comes in and out with that sort of thing. Depends on my day, on my mood.
Oh, okay. So if at any
Yeah.
point during the conversation you just get up and walk away, it's just I'm just gonna take it in stride. I'm not gonna take it as anything personal.
Okay. I mean, I'll let you know if I hit a burnout. Like,
No, for
But
sure. No,
I'm gonna try and stay here.
no,
Stay present.
no. Of course, it's all right. Well, many of us have trouble staying present in almost any
Mm.
situation. Um, so could you tell us whatever you're comfortable with when it comes to this before, because I do want to ask more questions about your content and your efforts and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But just to add more context here, Could you tell us about what you are comfortable saying that you're currently diagnosed with and deal with, like kind of a little bit of that rundown? Because everyone
Right,
that's watching this already knows what the hell's wrong with me. So,
right, yeah. So I'm actually a self-diagnosed schizoid personality disorder. I've had um a lot of issues with relationships and connecting with people throughout my life, going back to my early teens. In my early teens, I went for counseling and I didn't find it helpful because it wasn't really hitting the core issues. It was just talking about things, and I didn't really feel I was progressing.
mhm.
But then when I was at university, I was studying cognitive psychology, and the issues were still there, but there was a better sort of service there to support the student support, and I was referred to a psychotherapist, psychologist, and I was told that I needed to be in psychotherapy for a minimum of 10 years. And at that point, it just freaked me out because I was studying psychology. I was thinking of going into the field. And then I didn't want to get stigmatized with a mental
Fair.
disorder.
Yeah, of course.
And also, just thinking 10 years ahead was just really daunting. And like, I was afraid that, like, oh no, they're going to put me and they're going to put me in an institution or, things like that.
Yeah.
So I basically ran and so that was that for a while. So I was dealing with my issues on my own.
Hmm.
And then yeah, a few years ago I came across the schizoid personality disorder and it just ticked the boxes. It was like, yeah, this is what's been wrong all this time. And it's very clear to me because as you know, like yourself, you probably have a lot of self insight, you know exactly what's going on with you,
Hmm.
etc. etc. So yeah, it fit like a glove. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think it does. It definitely
Mm,
does. But it brings up other questions too, which is like you're not the first person I've heard that was tried to like that schizoid and tried to involve themselves in like academia and things like that,
mm,
and oftentimes felt kind of sort of out of place even in an environment in which you often think, oh, this is where people are here to think and discuss with like complex ideas and all this sort of stuff. And yet you still have to worry about something like the stigmatization of mental health, right? Which is like,
mm,
and it's still an incredibly real problem, especially anything with the word schizo attached to it, right? Whether
mm-hmm.
and it's just it's an awful thing. But what I did want to go into a little bit further was why did they, I mean, I'm trying to like conceptualize how a psychologist or you said a school therapist.
It was university, yeah. It is
Yeah.
school in American, right? It's a
Yeah.
school for all types of educational institutions, yeah.
Yeah, no, for
Yeah.
sure. But what sort of like position, what sort of like I guess
It was a
credentials or
refer
whatever
it's
this
a ref
person told you?
do you know, I don't really know what their credentials were because it was a long time ago
It's
and I
just
didn't
such a
really go into
statement.
it.
It's just such a statement to
Yeah,
say
I
to
mean
somebody.
they wrote it in the letter actually. And when I read the letter, because I went for the assessment.
Mhm.
And so I was waiting to see like, okay, what would be the outcome of the assessment. So they
Mhm.
sent me a letter and they recommended psychotherapy for a minimum
A
of 10
minimum of
years, a
10
minimum.
years.
Hmm.
That's so
And
that's such an absurd thing to like put in front of someone after an assessment. That's
that freaked me out, obviously, because it's like,
yeah,
it made me feel there must be something seriously wrong with
yeah,
me, because I couldn't conceptualize like 10 years ahead realistically and then
yeah,
to
yeah.
need to that much therapy. But now that I'm thinking about it, now I didn't actually at that point get the actual diagnosis because I didn't stick around.
Mhm.
But I'm thinking that if that psychotherapist did suspect that it was a schizoid issue, that might account for the length of time because
No, yeah,
from my
yeah.
understanding that the therapy process isn't a short one. But I will never know because I ran. So
No, I understand
Mm,
that. It's just, but nonetheless, it's such a, I don't think it requires, personally, I don't think it's something that necessarily should require 10 years. I think the reason it
mm,
requires 10 years is because they don't know what they're doing when it comes to the subject. And it's
right.
such a niche thing, and it's such a understudied, under researched sort of situation
Mm-hmm.
that, yeah, half the time a psychologist is kind of going in blind, trying to like figure out how to help a person that would be considered schizoid, right?
Mm-hmm.
um and ultimately, like, I just find it strange that they would say like 10 years minimum. Like, and this also brings me to another part of it. Like, I often ask this to a lot of the schizoid peeps that I talk to. um I'm always curious, like, what sort of, like, because generally, I would say anybody that knows anything about schizoid stuff, generally quiet, mild mannered, usually, sometimes flat affect, uh
Mm,
not really a big splash sort of personality that's going to show up and do something, generally do something that's going to bring a lot of attention to them, and
mm.
things of that nature. So I wonder, you said that you were going to the uni, and then someone, they recommended that you go see somebody, right?
No, no,
Or you went on your own?
I volunteered
Oh,
for
okay.
like the counseling service, and then I got recommended from there on,
Oh, okay.
referred. Yeah, so I
Oh,
took
okay.
myself there.
Okay, that's, I was about to say,
Hmm.
that's generally the case with a
No,
lot of
because they
schizoid
didn't
groups.
headhunt me like or anything, or sort of point
Oh,
me
okay.
out on the crowd and think. No, I did volunteer myself.
Okay.
Hmm.
All right. I just wanted to ask because I've had situations where it's not the case, where people tell me that it's because like they were too quiet, or too, uh,
Okay,
or they were too, they were rejecting too many social things. They were too
okay,
avoidant in their behavior.
right. That makes
And
sense.
and
Yeah.
so then, like, people, that makes you stand out, and then people are worried about you, and then people, like, you're sitting there, like, most of the time they're sitting there going like, I think I'm okay, and then people were like, no, you need someone, and it's like, okay, and then they end up just kind of
Mm,
going to satisfy, sort of the, almost the needs of the people that are just concerned. But anyway,
mm-hmm,
that's all. um what I do want to ask next is, why did you decide? And this is your time to you can chill a little bit, your channel and everything. I do it
mm,
every chance I get whenever I go somewhere, because that's the only way to get around these places.
mm.
Why did you decide that you had to actively do something like content creation, to, and look at my main questions. I can't even read them. Okay, there we go. Actively do something like content creation. What made you go, okay, I have this supposed disorder. I have things I want to say about disorders in general. I have things I want to say about human personalities and relationships and interactions. And, besides, obviously, you have an interest in it, right?
Mm,
Why did you decide, okay, I'm going to make videos, I'm going to use some 3D animations, I'm going to make a VTuber avatar and do, like, essentially presentations on different subject matters? Like, that takes a lot of forethought and, like, effort, right? And I mean, and of course, oftentimes schizoids aren't usually like associated with with continuing forward projects that they start, hence the abolition. But what made you kind of overcome maybe some of those issues and then decide, okay, I'm making things, I'm doing things, I'm working on this shit?
I think that the things that I'm doing are in alignment with what I would think on a day-to-day basis anyway.
Uh-huh.
So at first, when I was doing the animations, it's just a matter of taking what was already in my head and just putting it down on
Mhm.
into a sort of tangible format. So it's like I felt that I needed a creative channel or a creative outlet because everything was just stuck in my head. It's going round and round and round in my head like a washing machine, you know?
Mhm.
And I thought if I could get it out, that maybe it could serve a dual purpose. It would give me something to be responsible for, something that I can use as an outlet, as a vent to a channel for creative release. And also other people could benefit from it. And I was hoping that I could maybe form a relationship with the viewers
Mhm.
through the channel because I was feeling very isolated So I'd say creative release and some relief from the isolation as well.
Okay, so through the kind of parasocial sort of means that usually comes with like content creation, like relieve some of the isolation with like some of that interaction with like viewers or
Or
people that.
just like hearing other people's um comments, I
Mhm,
find like really interesting because just like hearing people put their views down, I feel like I'm connecting with another person's mind,
mhm,
you know, and just that alone can help to relieve the isolation for me personally, you know.
no, for sure. I mean, it's just do you have like a I guess what's that old saying, like a horse in this race? Like, is there something that you want to see change or be done regarding this topic, or how it's approached, or how it's discussed, that would make you go, oh, I want to educate people on it more, or I want people that don't know about it to hear things about it, or
I think
maybe, oh, sorry, go ahead. Huh.
that's okay. No, no, what you just said about people that don't know about it to know about it, I think definitely that because when I think that like I was studying psychology and schizoid personality disorder didn't come up. And if it had come up, then I would have known a lot earlier what was going on, you know.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of people out there that don't know, you know. And so definitely like that, I think that it would be beneficial for people to know because then they would like learn more perhaps like how to just the awareness alone. Like for example, like I spent a lot of my life here trying to figure out what's wrong with me, what's wrong with me, what's wrong with me. Like
Mhm.
why aren't I like the other people? Why are they doing that? Why aren't I doing that? How come they
Yeah,
enjoy that? Why don't I enjoy that?
yeah.
You know, and I was just puzzled. And even I would say going to study psychology was part of trying to alleviate the puzzledness of trying to work myself out.
I did the
And
same thing, so I relate to that.
right, so like I'm thinking to myself that when I found out about schizoid issues, it's like the eureka moment, and it has relieved me of a lot of mental sort of searching, you know, and trying to figure this out. It's actually giving answers. Like before, like sometimes I was trying to work out what was wrong and just coming up with more questions, but since finding out about schizoid personality, it's like I can use that same energy to find answers rather than just more questions.
Yes. Yeah, I know what you mean too, because I kind of had the same sort of process myself. It gave me a sort of rock to hold on to for a minute. Even though eventually that rock started crumbling in my hands because I just thought I saw so many issues with how it's sort of treated and discussed and everything, and that has its own kind of rabbit hole, right? But yes, getting some kind of grounding, some beginning grounding is incredibly important, right? When you're constantly feeling so lost in both yourself and in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And would you say that some of the like the content you're creating is for the purposes of maybe other people like yourself finding it and then going, oh, okay, there's just
Mm-hmm.
something that makes sense. This is something I'm watching this and I'm going, oh, I kind of connect to this.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe they'll just decide on their own to like maybe
Mm-hmm.
look into it further and kind of go through whatever steps you did
Yeah.
regarding that sort
Yeah.
of stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, it's really interesting because like just hearing that is nice because it's just another testament to how untrue the idea that schizoids are indifferent or don't give a shit about anything or any
Mm-hmm.
people, which is
Mm-hmm.
it's utter horseshit in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the manner in which they do care about others is unconventional most of the time,
Right.
or more distant, or
Mm-hmm.
maybe more meta, but it still nonetheless exists, and it's quite potent because,
Mm-hmm.
and the reason I think it's quite potent is because nobody decides to sit there for hours, editing, uh, um, writing, putting stuff together, setting things up, and getting little to no income from doing
Mm-hmm.
any of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
No one does that without having some passion for something, even if it's
I
not
don't know
being
about
outwardly.
passion really. I wouldn't really use the word passion.
Oh, all right.
I
Use
would
your
say
words.
that I'll say that like that sometimes it feels like I need a necessity. Like
Okay.
if I don't do this, then what? You know, it's like
Yeah.
that a need to fulfilling a need, I'd say in some ways. But passion like is a word
Yeah.
that I've always heard people use and I never understood really what it really meant, you know,
Yeah.
because like
Maybe it's a bad
people would
word to
say
use
like
for
no, no,
this
it's
example.
just a me thing, I think really. It's not nothing
Mhm.
wrong with you using the word, but it's just a
No.
me thing that it's always a word that's always got me a bit like it felt frustrated me a bit because people would say you need to find your passion and I don't
Um,
understand what you mean by passion. Do you know what I mean? So it's
yeah.
just it's one of my sort of Achilles heels, I think, you know.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense. Passion is definitely a strong word for what I was trying to convey.
Mm,
Considering that a lot of schizoids are kind of they're just trying to get to neutral. They're just trying to get to stable. They're not necessarily trying to get to like passion, you know. Like
mm.
it's kind of funny, like the
It's
way
a
you
big word.
yeah,
Mm,
it is. It's a strong
mm,
word for somebody that can oftentimes barely feel like they want to get out of bed.
mm.
You know, or eat or do a lot of things just to get through the day. So yeah, it's definitely too strong a word, and I agree with that much. Okay, so this is a bit silly, but I'm just curious. Is there is it just a coincidence that the schizoid model you use is suspiciously long haired with a beard? Like I am not kidding. When I like showed up on the I was watching your when you did this the first schizoid and fill in the blank personality interactions because and when you started I was like the hell
Busted,
like
like
no
no,
yeah
I was like
no but it might just be a complete coincidence but I was just like that's hilarious like
it is funny. It's funny, like because what it was that actually I had that character. This is the real story behind it. I had that character who was I used to make MBTI cartoons, and
mhm,
he was the sort of delinquent bad boy boyfriend
hilarious
of one of my
a
characters.
bad boy
He actually went to prison in the cartoon because like you know it's like yeah. And then I saw him and I thought, oh, I think he'll make a good main schizoid guy, you know.
uh,
And then afterwards, somebody actually drew to my attention. That looks like Angst, and I'm like, oh yeah, it does look like.
like
Maybe
I'm
it's
just like
subconscious. Maybe it was a
yeah
subconscious thing, you know.
I was like, okay, well, I just thought it was funny because I'm like, what the hell? Like he's like just he's wearing all black and he's just like sitting there with the long hair and then the
That your
beard
doppelganger, yeah.
and just you know just being real kind of and I'm
Mm.
like, yeah, that's kind of weird. But
Maybe I should give him your name, like you know, because he didn't have
no,
a name yet. He's called Dude at the moment, just because.
my actual name or my
No, no,
channel
no,
name.
no, no. Your name, like
Just
as
call
in
him
Angst,
Mr. Angst.
Angst the second or
Angst,
something. I don't
yeah.
know.
But I
It
just
doesn't
found
have
it
a good
funny.
ring to it though. But anyway,
No,
yeah,
not quite, but
we'll
yeah, to
see.
anybody watching this, check out I want you to check out Schizoid Vision's channel and get a laugh out of the fact that the Schizoid generally has like this kind of similar look that I have. So and I find that amusing in general. But
Mm,
okay, so just to delve a little bit further here. Um what are your thoughts? And you said that you maybe watched some of my stuff, so maybe you might know what I'm kind of trying to bring up. What are your thoughts on like the sort of differences between what a schizoid is presented to be and what a schizoid internally feels and experiences, and sort of like you know in literature or otherwise, and sort of how the like the more complex internal world of the schizoid is sort of being ignored
mm-hmm,
um and it and even when it is acknowledged oftentimes it's being tied to pathology,
mm-hmm,
right? So
mm-hmm.
I'm curious to how you feel about that sort of stuff. Like what's the balance here? What part of the schizoid is adaptation and pathology, maladaptation or whatever, and what part of it is just a very unique sort of different kind of person internally?
All right, okay. So I've got a general understanding that in the DSM-5, the disorder is based around not wanting to interact with people.
Mhm.
Um, I think though that the internal world definitely is not represented in the DSM-5, and that when you look into the psychoanalytic theory, like Gundry and Fairbairn and people like Jerry Seinfeld, that they talk a lot more about the inner subjective world. And I think that with I think that the schizoidism is a personality adaptation. And I think that the pathology comes when people are having extreme difficulties dealing with um, their um, their inner self in relation to the world. You know, that there's some sort of tension between themselves and the world.
Mhm.
But I do want to, the thing with this issue is that I'm going to go into this specifically in greater depth on my channel, because there's a lot to say about the psychoanalytic theory, object theory side of things versus the DSM-5
Mhm.
side of things. And it's difficult to just sum it up quickly now, because it is a whole two sort of very different areas. And one field is like very expansive. I mean, the DSM-5 is just like a list, isn't it, of like a few things. But when you go into the inner world, it's vast, it's complex, I think it's one of the most intricate personality types, schizoid. It's like it's one of the most intricate human natures to manifest, because
Mhm.
it is such a deep seated issue, you know.
What are your do you have any thoughts on something that I often bring up, which is that I believe that that schizoids, the idiosyncratic thinking that's often referred to as schizoids possessing, if you
Mm,
look at Akstar's profile and all that kind of stuff, then I believe that there is a neurodivergence component that is being conflated with the maladaptations or the adaptations
mm.
that type of person develops trying to sort of navigate the world. And so I'm curious that if you have any thoughts on that. Do you think there is some kind of component there? Because like as many that watch me have been seeing, I'm trying to bridge some of those gaps and I'm trying to communicate some of the struggles that seem very similar between somebody that's schizoid or schizotypal and somebody that is autistic as well. And oddly enough, there's a lot of people that were diagnosed autistic that end up being re-diagnosed schizoid later in life. So because of some
Right.
of those.
So, is the question is, do I think that people with schizoid personality disorder have a neurodivergent component to their personality?
Yes. Like, do you think there's something that's fundamentally different about the way they maybe pattern recognize their cognitive functions are different in some way or another? Not worse, not better, just different. And that there's like some underlying issue there, or not concern, but like component.
Well, from my understanding, that people with schizoid personality disorder are born neurotypical, and that the divergence happens through the brain rewiring itself as a
Mhm.
consequence of the person's reaction to the environment. But there is a genetic component as well, isn't there? Like, so I think that some people are predisposed to more likely develop a schizoid personality. But the thing is, if there was a neurological component at birth, then they say they have it for autism. They know that that is neurological. Then why haven't they found it for the schizoid? You know, unless they
Because
have, you know,
nobody's
nobody's
bothered.
looking. But
Yeah,
then
that's what I'm trying to change to. But yeah, nobody's bothered. There's nobody's looking. Yeah.
I think it'll
Um,
be interesting to find out. Like, I would like to know if there's any research going on in that area, like to know for certain, because there's only one way to find out, and that's going to be through brain scanning, isn't it?
I mean, interestingly enough, they've done it for things like schizophrenia, schizoaffectivity, and I think they've even done some of that work for people that are schizotypal or
Mm.
diagnosed schizotypal. But yeah, there isn't a lot of work when it comes to the schizoid. But it's to me, it's not a coincidence that that for some reason a lot of schizoids that I talk to, and like I still, you know, and for those that don't know about it, I run a server. I got like, I don't know, 400 plus schizoids that we've put in there, and they do their thing or whatever. But they seem to be sometimes even more comfortable around people that are considered schizo than around like what would be the average neurotypical person. Like as far as having conversations with them and interacting with them. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's a complete coincidence, right? But anyway,
Yeah.
whatever. But
I get what you mean by that, really. That would make sense because I think it's like, I think what you're talking about a bit, but not in these words, is like being out of the box, you know? And I think when you're out of the box, you get on with other people that are out of the box. So let's say that neurotypicals are in the box
mhm,
and say neurodivergent people are out of the box. That means that their thinking is sort of not bound by social programming.
mhm,
So if you're not bound by social programming, you're probably more likely to get on with other people that are not bound by social programming. You know?
mhm. No, that's probably why I also get along with a lot of autistic people too.
Mm,
Um,
mm-hmm,
uh, but thank you for answering that. The other subject I wanted to delve into, and this one's a little controversial, or a little spicy, but um, okay. So this is just my brain connecting things together because I do some of this internally, do a lot of this loose associative stuff, right? I make
mm-hmm,
little connections, little patterns, and then I want to ask questions and learn more. And one of those things is this. I find it really interesting that there isn't very many schizoid channels or uh, many content creators, and most of them are small, including myself. Um, so it's not a saturated market, right? It's a very
mm-hmm,
undersaturated market, to say the least. And it's a very niche market. I find it really interesting that yourself, I believe it was I forgot the name of the third individual. Well, it was Finn S, yourself. There's three content creators, all female, all black, and schizoid. and
right.
I and I'm just like, statistically, like, what are the chances that you're going to have that combination of factors, and they're going to be content creators, and they're all good speakers,
Mm-hmm,
and straight shooters, and it's just so funny, like it's so interesting to me. And the reason it comes up in my mind, this is just like I said, my loose association, is because one of the examples that I often give to people when I'm having a conversation on like the struggles of the neurodivergent person, right,
mm-hmm,
is or the person with, like, you know, that is schizo or has like very idiosyncratic thinking patterns or whatever you want to call it, is that it brings up the topic of what I guess, for lack of a better phrase, the marginalized group within the marginalized group within the marginalized group within the marginalized group, which is an example I often give is, okay, if you were talking about something like 1950s, 1960s, civil rights
mm-hmm,
movement, right? And then you have women which are being essentially marginalized within the black community of the time by the men, so they're not being allowed to be on the forefront of, you know, the very activism or the very protesting and the very work that is attempting to solve a problem, right?
mm-hmm,
And then even within that group, let's just say there were women working the back line for this sort of stuff. Uh, Even within that group, if you had an autistic woman or a schizoaffective woman, black woman in that same group, she's going to be
mm-hmm,
marginalized by
mm-hmm,
the very women that are already kind of marginalized, right?
mm-hmm,
So I find it really interesting that neurodivergency is essentially one of the most kind of sort of, uh, I guess, what would be historically downtrodden groups in human
mm-hmm,
existence.
mm-hmm,
But at the
mm-hmm,
same time, what's amusing to me is that these groups, and whether it's a schizoid or an autistic person or any of that stuff, these groups are generally the ones least interested in the very dynamics of, say, things like tribalism, right? Say things like
mm-hmm,
how do I put this? Like, I want to just care, like the categories in which the problem is sort of approached, it becomes a lot wider. Like it's kind of a more, usually more meta scope of the situation. Does that make any sense? Am I making sense? I feel like I'm not making sense.
I'm not really understanding the last bit you're talking about. Is the tribalism aspect. Like they're not interested so much in tribalism. Are you talking about the fact that like schizo spectrum people don't fit into cultural groups and stuff like
Yeah,
that?
like they usually not
Mm,
like interested in that sort of stuff. And because they're not, it tends to kind of make them outliers within groups that are already outliers
mm,
in a society, right? Or in a group
yeah,
or in a place or in a what have you. And
yeah.
but they're also the ones least interested in being given attention or feeling like victims of something. And so that's really something that's always been fascinating to me.
Why do you think that they like feel least like feel like a victim? They don't feel like a victim. Like, where's that perspective coming from? Is it because they feel like they've not really taken on other people's views and opinions?
Maybe,
Mm,
maybe. I like I find it really interesting. Like growing up myself, I'm Latino or whatever. I never found it interesting or motivating to or affected by things that either were focused on nationality, race,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
um,
Yeah.
even like local culture, religion, subsets or groups. So the sort of um, community, and
Mm-hmm,
then out group in group dynamics,
mm-hmm.
right? Like that sort of stuff's always been very very foreign to me. I
Yeah.
understood it intellectually, but it's always been a really foreign thing. And it's also a very foreign thing for a lot of the not just the schizoids, but a lot of the autistic people I talk to. It's such a foreign concept, and it's just like you have to kind of you can figure it out why people do it, but you're just like all you understand is why people do it. You don't understand why they feel they need to do it,
Mm.
or why they get trapped in these sort of cycles.
It sounds
So
like social politics and stuff like that. Like,
yeah. Well,
yeah, agreed. Yeah, I get what you mean. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a part of not being part of the program and being out of the box again, that like they don't really adhere to those things because there's no motivation really to engage in it, like because it doesn't deliver any return. It probably seems like a waste of energy to a lot of people.
why do you think it's a waste of energy? Like that sort of stuff.
Social politics and stuff. I mean, usually that's it for people that want to climb the ladder, isn't it, of society to some sort of success? Because people tend to be like, I'll scratch your back, you scratch mine, and they play the game so they can do each other favors, point score, build up a reputation, climb the ladder, and have material success. But I think when you're not really adhered to the physical world, when you have that detachment, that material trappings just aren't really that not that attractive. And so
Mm.
therefore to play the game to get something that you don't really feel is that rewarding, that's why it would be a waste of energy.
No, I mean, yeah, absolutely. Because the way I'm interpreting that is that even if you're talking about something like social politics, you're going to have a situation in which the very goals that the leaders or the strongest advocates of those groups, right,
Mm-hmm,
are essentially trying to climb for even their community or their group. They're trying to climb a social ladder, a social
mm-hmm,
hierarchy that is
mm-hmm.
already uninteresting or unmotivating to a lot of people in these categories that are socially sort of indifferent or in that sense.
Yeah, and I think in particular you said a good word just then, and it was hierarchy, because I think that at least with schizoid people and probably other people on the spectrum, they lack hierarchical thinking, that this is better than that and this person is higher than this person. And when you take that away, that really does, that is a game killer in terms of like society strategies of getting ahead socially, because a
Mm.
hierarchy, they most people who adhere to society standards, they respect the hierarchy.
Well, they respect it, and I think this is why I bring up the kind of cognitive differences. It's not even just a respect. I think oftentimes it's like innate. It's just
It's so
because we are,
ingrained.
well, we're social animals, right? That's what everyone always says. We're social animals. We're
Mm,
social animals. We evolved to be social. but this sort of system feels like foreign to an outlier of individuals that just can't connect to it. But a lot of this sort of stuff is intuitive for the people interacting. I would say that people that are conventionally, even people that are introverts, right? Because you talk about personalities and the various INTJs and INTPs and everything else. Even people that are introverts, oftentimes are still interested in these things. They're just a lot less interested, or they're interested in like in spurts, right? Like it's like they care about how others perceive them socially, but they're not necessarily putting all their energy into it, or so on and so forth, right? And what's interesting is that comparatively to the schizoid, it extends far beyond mere introversion, right?
Yeah,
So
it's
so
deeper.
yeah, and I'm just wondering, like, what is that depth, right? So I find that where's that? Why is it so deep? What is it? Just trauma? Is it just this? Is it just that? So but I'm really glad you're doing the work you're doing, because I think more individuals of this dealing with this sort of stuff need to kind of be active
Yeah,
in
I do
some
want
way
to
or another.
go more into the depth actually, because
Yeah, do it. Let's go.
because it's so complex. Like, I think the main challenge is to put it across in a way that people can understand, because you know when you get like into the libidinal and anti-libidinal ego, and when
Mhm.
you get into the embodied unembodied self, you get
Yeah,
into ontological insecurity, fear of engulfment, fear of implosion,
I like how you say
petrification.
all those things like almost bored. Like I get it.
Yeah.
You're just like, and then an object, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and that exactly what I'm trying to like not do when I make the video. So I have
Mhm.
to take all of these sort of contents a lot of people could literally switch off from, and present it in a format that's absorbable, you know. So
Mhm.
that's more of a challenge even than is the explaining. The explaining, I think, is what is a big challenge, you know, because I do want people to understand, you know.
It's the whys, right, that aren't being asked. That's what I've always thought about. There's a lot of, when it comes to something, whether it's schizoid or other types of very kind of anti, or not antisocial, but like asocial sort of conditions, if you will. The whys aren't really being asked, right? They're not asking the schizoid, why do you stay away from others, right? And if they do ask them, they pathologize the rationalizations of the schizoid, or the reasons that they're trying to explain, right? If they explain them, right? So I've heard a lot of stories of schizoids basically going to therapy and then being suggested that they merely just have to interact with people more or
Mm.
expose themselves more to it in order to somehow connect to some component or something that is innate to them, that they're just what's the word, they're keeping from themselves, right?
Yeah, see, when you say this now, like this is back to the problem of I think a lot of psychologists don't really understand what the depths of the schizoid personality. And when you look into psychoanalytic theory and object relation theory, it goes into a lot more depth. And if they had gone, if they knew more, they wouldn't say that sort of thing to people. It's probably because they're just looking at the DSM-5, thinking, oh, you don't want to hang out with people, you know, you're not really have got much interest, and they're just like, oh, you just need a push, and then you'll be okay. But that shows a lack of understanding of the sort of anatomy of the schizoid personality, you know, the wiring, the makeup, you know. So
Yeah.
yeah, I can see that it's a lack of understanding on behalf of the therapist.
Is it just ignorance, perhaps? Like there's a lack of research, so there is very little for them to point to, or do you think there's enough out there that, oh, they should be able to at least do something about it a little
There's
better?
a lot of problems with categorization, I think,
Mhm.
because the DSM-5 schizoid personality disorder, as you said, it doesn't explain the inner subjective world of the schizoid. So, and they're also being told that people who have schizoid personality disorder don't want to mingle with people. They're not interested in interacting, which isn't true. So, I think it is ignorant. Yeah, I think that maybe because it's thought to be like not a very common condition as well, that many therapists, they're going to probably more focus their attention on the common disorders because they think that's what's going to walk through the door, that's what they're going to be dealing with most. So if someone does come in who has a schizoid personality, the therapist just might not be up to scratch with the details, you know, the ins and outs of how that works and how that looks on the inside.
Yeah, because there's just not that much conversation in general occurring, even within
Mm,
academia about such things. Like,
mm,
I just find it fascinating because, like, I don't necessarily think that some of the reasons why a schizoid oftentimes stays away from others or is reclusive in most cases, or is uncomfortable with conventional forms of intimacy and things like that. I don't think all the reasons they put forward are untrue or merely maladaptations. I think there is some truth in how they often feel and what they're expressing. Like if they're saying, I don't like to talk to people. Okay, why? Because I feel like I'm going to be constantly misunderstood or misattributed, or people are going to make prejudgments about me because of my sort of unconventional approaches or thoughts on a variety of things that seem
mm,
to be really important to everyone around me.
mm.
And so the question doesn't become, it's like, well, let's question some of those things that society or people put so much importance on. That's not the thing that needs to be that's not being reflected on. It's, oh, why aren't you just running in conjunction with what everyone else seems to be motivated by, um, driven by?
That's
So
that makes sense.
anyway, I'm just rambling now.
It's
But
okay.
no, it's what I do. And I get so much shit from my watchers because like they'll be like, shut the fuck up, Angst. You let the person that you invited on talk. Like you're just saying a bunch of bullshit. Yeah, but you know, whatever. That's just how it is. Um, is there anything that you wanted to, like, I don't know, ask about or mention about your own work or your own future efforts or anything like that? Anything that you think is important to mention or discuss or wax on philosophical about? I don't care.
No, what I've been mentioning a few times is that I want to share more about the psychoanalytic theory perspective on schizoid personality, and I want to talk more about schizoid adaptations. And basically, going forward, instead of focusing on necessarily just people who relate to the DSM-5 criteria, though that is important still, that I would like to look at Harry Guntrip's 9 core
Untrue.
schizoid traits, and I want to divulge that and make that a lot more clear, because I think that really that there are people who would relate to the 9 core schizoid traits of Guntrip but don't know about it, and I think that's really, I think, where I'd like to shine the light going forward, because sometimes some cases we're talking about two completely different people, you know, people that resonate with the Guntrip criteria
Mhm.
and may not so much resonate with the DSM-5, though they probably would to some degree. And then people that resonate with the DSM-5 criteria, but don't necessarily resonate with the Guntrip. And then people that resonate with both. So I hope to like sort of clarify like that, you know, and go into more detail about object relations theory, because from what I've seen, because the schizoid personality disorder is so very complex and deep, that I think object relations theory is the best way to explain what's going on. Because personally, when I looked into it, that gave me the greatest insight of anything that I've seen on the topic, because it really did go right back to the beginning of the journey and explained like how potentially our journey sort of went down a different path to what other people's does, and that led us to become a schizoid personality. So so there's going to be a lot more depth on the channel, but at the same time I'm going to try to keep it as simple as possible, but go into enough depth that I can explain some of the contradictions that are coming up.
I'm excited to
Yeah.
hear that. That sounds really cool.
Yeah.
And it's good to you have like thoughts planned out on what's steps to take and stuff. And I know it can be
Mm,
daunting for sure to like
mm.
think like, oh man, I got so much work ahead of me. But you know, when it's something you give a shit about, which is not something a lot of schizoids have an easy time finding, things they give a shit about, like that, or in the actual world that they want to interact with. You
No,
know,
but I think the thing is, yeah, as I said before, it's a process of like solving that puzzle that I've been doing my whole life. So if you found a puzzle piece, you've been trying to solve a puzzle your whole life, and
yeah.
someone threw you a bag of puzzle pieces, what are you gonna do? Do you know what I mean? So it's like it's just like that. I'm just picking the pieces up and putting them together, and I'm like, look, look, this fits here, this fits here,
And
this
then
fits there.
sometimes it's like somebody threw three different puzzles at you and mixed them up in a bag and then just threw them and then said, okay, figure out the puzzle, but there's actually three puzzles and you're
Yeah.
trying to like figure thinking the whole time you think it's one puzzle and you like none of these pieces fit.
Mm.
But there are three separate puzzles in there to solve. Um, okay, one last sort of question I think that would be cool. Um, would be this. Um, what are your thoughts? Because this is a common problem. This is something that's like oftentimes discussed in these sort of circles of interest. We've been God, look, I'm sweating like crazy. It's actually
It's
incredibly hot in
hot.
this room. No, in
Mm.
this room it's very hot at the moment. Summer here in Cali. Um,
Okay.
it's like, I don't know, 90 something out there right now.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
so I'm just sweating like a, you know, pigs don't sweat or whatever. Um, the we've been removed from what I understand, we've been removed from the ICD. The
Oh,
current
already.
iteration. Yes.
Okay.
The current iteration of the ICD, I think it made a lot of changes. And one of those changes was essentially creating certain types of conflations between specific types of personality disorders and making them sort of one and then kind of getting rid of the original categories based on like similarities in behavior, right? And one
Mm.
of the problems with that kind of stuff, and I want your opinion, is the conflation oftentimes or the arguments that are made about how there shouldn't be that much of a differentiation between a schizoid and an avoidant. So, or ABPD, right?
Right. Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts on like what makes those two fundamentally different or similar or any of that?
Yeah, I mean, this is another complex issue, and there's a lot of debate over like whether avoidant personality is part of schizoid personality disorder, if they should be separate or not. Yeah, what my view is that, from my understanding, that people with schizoid personality have some avoidant traits, but they don't have enough avoidant traits to be regarded as having avoidant personality disorder. So the avoidant in the schizoid personality would be maybe sort of wanting to get close to people, that when wanting to avoid and stay away from relationships. So the oscillation, like in and out of relationships, could be kind of like part of the avoidance of like not staying and getting involved and becoming committed at times. And then would you, what I, from my understanding, that there was a time when schizotypal, avoidant, and schizoid were all part of one category.
Yeah.
So they took the avoidant and they've added social phobia to it to pathologize it as a disorder within itself.
Mhm.
And people do seem to relate to that. And then with the schizotypal, they sort of added sort of like a low level psychosis element to it to
Mhm.
make it more closer to schizophrenia, you know, delusions, like sort of
Mhm.
things like that. So I'd say that a schizoid individual could have some avoidant traits and some schizotypal traits without having the social anxiety or the psychosis that are associated to the avoidant and the schizotypal disorder.
Mhm.
Because the unusual thoughts patterns, I mean, I would think that's quite natural for someone who um, isn't integrated psychologically into society, isn't following society protocol, isn't going along with society teachings. They're going to develop, and as we talked about before, they're out of the box. They're going to develop their own style of thinking. And you say idiosyncratic, yeah?
Yeah, that's the term
So
that's been used. That's just a
yeah,
reference to Axtar's profile.
so
Um,
in that sense,
unconventional thoughts,
it
beliefs.
makes sense that a schizoid individual would have unconventional thoughts and beliefs, you know, without it having to be a separate pathology and called schizotypal. Though there are some people that do fall into the schizotypal category, you know. So what I'm saying is there's been some mix up. They've moved the boundaries into different places at different times.
Mhm.
I don't know if I'm going off on topic here, but
No, no,
yeah,
you're
answers.
perfectly no tangents are fun. I love it. That's why I love to talk to schizo-spectrum peeps because we
Mm,
tend to fucking go off all kinds of tangents and one direction another, connecting this to that, and then having a because there's so much complexity, there's so much nuance,
yeah.
there's so many layers upon layers of shit
Hmm.
that could be discussed, and it's hard to stay on track, at least for me. So
Yeah.
no, but yeah, that's really interesting. I've often said that I think one of the major differences between Avoidant and Schizoid PD is one is more focused, or the Avoidant is more what would be termed rejection sensitive. So
Right.
rejection sensitivity seems to drive a lot of the motivation behind
Mm,
an avoidance like reclusion or things
mm,
of that nature. And with the schizoid, it's generally doesn't seem to be motivated by rejection sensitivity. It's usually
right.
motivated by a different kind of sensitivity, which is being, I don't know what you would call it, but being misunderstood or miscast or misjudged for their words, or having their words just misattributed, um, or the perspectives misattributed when
Right.
expressed. And so that's kind of a sensitivity in and of itself, or having their agency taken away from them
Right.
by others assuming things about them, because it is agency removing when somebody puts you in a box
Right.
and things like that because you say one thing or another that is unconventional. So I think most schizoids retreat because of that, less because
Right.
oh people won't like them. They will be rejected from the social hierarchy or the social world. I mean, because
Mm,
if you, why would you be sensitive, emotionally sensitive to being rejected from a world that just makes very little sense to you, or you're uninterested in to begin with, right?
I would, yeah, I would say like the way I see it as well, the difference between avoidant and schizoid is that with the avoidance, they seem to have a stronger sense of self,
mm,
and they're more sort of self-conscious, you know, because they're like afraid of making mistakes or shame. It's like the self-consciousness tends to be more fear-based, whereas with the schizoid individuals, we tend to devalue things in the external world more than the avoidant does. So we're less likely to be perturbed by what other people are going to think of us if we, you know, if we fuck up or do something wrong. Do you know what I mean?
yeah, no, for sure.
So I think that there is a difference there between the level of the strength of self or perception of self, and
Mm.
also the amount of valuation they place on the external world. Like they're with the avoidant, I think they actively consciously care more about what's happening in the external world, whereas with the schizoid we tend to be just sort of more detached and shut off from it, so that sort of probably lessens the fear aspect of it.
Yeah, and that's what's interesting too, is like what part of the world is a schizoid actually uninterested in, right? All of it? No, I don't think it's all of it. I think it's
Mm,
this, more particularly the social, um, is what is, and how important that is to most humans on
mm,
Earth, and how unimportant that is to most schizoids. And so I think yes, I think a preoccupation, emotional preoccupation with that sort of stuff still exists quite a bit in somebody that would be avoidant.
mm.
Um, but with the schizoid, it's like they could take that or leave it. I think, but that doesn't mean they want to be alone forever
No,
either.
no,
So
no.
it's just the standard in which they perceive company or non-loneliness existing is a standard in which is probably very difficult or impossible. Well, it feels impossible to attain in by when you have such separate, such out of the box standards about what
Mm-hmm.
human interaction and should be or would ideally look like. But anyway, uh, I think that was a good conversation. I think the best thing to do here toward the end is to allow you to mention all your any social media, anything at all. I'm gonna post the links obviously in underneath the video and all that kind of stuff, the usual things. But yes, shill away your.
So I've got my channel Schizoid Vision,
Yeah.
and I have a Facebook group called Schizoid Personality Disorder and Adaptations. And I've just recently started a Discord server called Schizoid Vision. Um, yeah, I think I'm not really big. I have a big presence.
No, it's
Oh,
all right.
actually I have a Facebook page.
Didn't your channel technically beat mine on subscribers already?
Well, the thing is I started off with subscribers from the MBTI
No, I
typology.
know.
So
I don't really give a shit about that. People are gonna say I'm clout chasing you by inviting you on. I'm kidding. It's like it's a joke.
is there not much been I don't think there's much in it, is there, really? Between us, there's not much
No,
in it.
no, I think it's like a few, like 100 or 200 or
It's
something.
nothing
No,
much in
no,
it.
it's we're
You're
both
joking, you're
we're both
joking with me.
we're
You're
both
joking with
fucking
me.
nobodies on the internet, so it's we're fucking no one. So but in any case, and I kind of like it that way. I wouldn't want to be too much of someone, but unfortunately, you have to be a little bit of someone in order to get the work done that you want to get done. So that's part of the I feel like that's one of the struggles of, I guess, what would be the schizoid content creator is like
Mm,
trying to manage that feeling of I don't really want to be perceived like a certain amount, but I need to be in order to achieve the goals that I'm looking to achieve, which are not
mm-hmm.
related to being socially perceived, right? So it's like a fucked up,
Yeah, it
it's like
is.
a
It
fucked
really
up thing.
is. It
I
really
mean, like
is.
it's a fucked up struggle. Like yourself, you have to have you're trying to make a Discord, you're using Facebook. I'm on Twitter, I'm networking, I'm doing all this sort of shit,
All the
right?
things it doesn't come naturally to
Hell
me.
no, I fucking hate all this shit.
Mm,
But I have to do it because it's the
mm-hmm,
reality of the world and the
mm,
situation we live in. And unfortunately, you got to do it. All right. Well, thanks a
yeah.
lot. Thanks a lot for being here today.
And thanks for having
And
me.
yeah, no, for sure. And guys, please, I'm gonna put the links at the bottom. Check out the channel, watch it, follow them, check out the server they're trying to create, check out the Facebook group. The more schizoids are ironically communicating, the better I think ultimately a lot of this stuff can be resolved and discussed. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
not silly enough to think that either me or you is going to have any significant major impact on the world. But I certainly hope that like maybe 100 of us doing something similar or in some way or being openly schizoid and talking about it could maybe potentially do something.
Yeah.
So you know what I'm saying? I'm not.
Yeah. I think the more the merrier, really, you know.
Well,
Like
I mean, generally that's not true, but
well, what I mean is the more people
no,
that
I
are
know, I know. No, no, I
it's
know.
like
Generally, that I'd say that's the opposite. The more people
when
there
I
are,
say
the less I
merry,
want to
I'm
be
not
there.
talking about a party really, but
No,
you
yeah, yeah, for
know.
sure. I know what you mean. All
Mm.
right. Thanks a lot, everyone. Thank
All
you,
right then.
Vision. Uh, and thanks a lot, everybody that's listening as well. And please think about supporting me on Patreon. I believe you probably have one too, right? I'm guessing you haven't set one up yet.
No,
Okay,
not yet.
yeah, that's the next step. But supporting me on Patreon, PayPal, and whatever else if you like these kind of conversations. And please check out the previous upload if you haven't, where I talked with Melissa Chappell regarding autism research and literature. Thank you very much.